For the next 3/4 of an hour, the 7,000 employees here at Toshiba World Headquarters in Tokyo will file in to work. As at so many of Japan's major companies, for most of these workers, this is the end of a long train commute. Like their counterparts at other companies, they are fiercely dedicated to Toshiba. But to Americans, Toshiba is not like other Japanese companies. It is the company that sold sensitive equipment for military use to the Soviets. Toshiba the treacherous. Should we ban their products from the U.S.? Is this company really as un-American as it seems? Actually, it was an American company, General Electric, that brought Toshiba to life. GE merged 2 early Japanese companies into Toshiba, and until the war was its majority shareholder. Toshiba, like Japan, fell behind after the war, but by the 1960s, Japan and Toshiba were both beginning to catch up. Like GE, Toshiba was moving into consumer appliances, and if its TV ads were a little shaky, its products were gradually getting better. Japanese companies may have been export-oriented, but throughout the 1960s, they relied on their huge home market and sold about 85% of what they made here in Japan. That was how they managed to produce in huge volume, which taught them to produce more and more efficiently and laid the groundwork for exporting to the world. All the while, Toshiba put forward a very friendly face to the public. This is a 1964 episode from their popular weekly TV program, Toshiba Sunday Theater. And here the program is today, 23 years later, still in tune with the times. But the company behind the TV show is tough as nails. It competes today in almost every market you can think of, and has knocked American firms out of many of them. The way you succeed in this competition abroad is to go all out at home. Back at Toshiba headquarters, it's now 8:29, and if that Toshiba worker, or that one, doesn't make it to the office by 8:30, their pay will be docked. We're here to interview Toshiba's president and CEO, Joichi Aoi, the man who leads this mass of humanity. The company's PR department has a lot to lose if this rare interview with the boss doesn't go as planned, given how paranoid Toshiba has become about publicity from the West. We begin safely enough with the ritual exchange of business cards. And now, President and Chairman Aoi starts by reading the answers to questions I had been asked to submit beforehand. Why did Toshiba sell sensitive equipment to the Russians? We've edited his response for brevity's sake.
Toshiba Machine Company unlawfully exported milling machines to the Soviet Union. We view with the deepest regret that company's misconduct. We were greatly shocked and angered to learn about the incident.
Maybe they were and maybe they weren't. But Aoi is right in saying that Toshiba Machine is only one of many Toshiba subsidiaries, as this corporate report, printed well before the incident, bears out.
The misdeed originated from the casual attitude of Toshiba Machine toward the observance of laws and restrictions. We are making a very determined effort, accompanied by stern disciplinary actions, to ensure that never again will such misconduct take place in the Toshiba group of companies.
The most visible action Toshiba took was traditionally Japanese: the ritual resignation of Chairman Saba and President Watari, the company's very refined chief executives. Both, however, remain paid and prestigious consultants to Toshiba. In their place, Toshiba installed the somewhat less polished Mr. Aoi.
My first assignment as president was to make public the reasons for the resignations. The two executives took personal responsibility for failing to establish an atmosphere in which no misconduct would occur.
The company also took out full-page ads in magazines and newspapers throughout the United States, this one is from the New York Times, publicizing the resignations and apologizing. What's so striking about the Toshiba case back here in America, even months after the incident, is that it epitomizes the true nature of Japanese companies: cutthroat competitiveness, even with each other. Americans tend to look at the Japanese economy and see a conspiracy among the Toshibas and Hitachis, the Nissans and Toyotas, to steal our market and our jobs. But the Toshiba case suggests something very different. Not conspiracy, but competition run amok. Japanese companies compete obsessively with each other. So obsessively that occasional violations of the law may seem almost inevitable. In Tokyo, we raised this issue with one of the world's foremost authorities on Japanese business, consultant and author James Beglin.
Japan is where the competition is. The reason these companies are good is not because they have a conspiracy at home, is because they try to kill each other at home. And what we see are the survivors, the mean, lean, oftentimes rather ugly survivors of some terrible competition at home.
And when you ask Mr. Aoi if Toshiba and Hitachi conspire together, he thinks you're kidding. This is a man whose life, up until the Soviet sale, was consumed with fighting Hitachi, not the U.S. Congress. He's a rather typical head of a rather typical Japanese company. And though his firm did break the law, Americans may have something to lose by punishing it.
Since the dawn of intelligence, man has been fascinated by the images he sees.
While we're worrying about Japan's primitive competitive instincts, we should also realize that companies like Toshiba are now emerging as true multinational corporations. For example, they no longer just copy our products, they innovate, and Western consumers benefit. Western workers benefit from Toshiba as well, since the company now manufactures abroad. This is a Toshiba factory in Great Britain, and there are 6 like it in the United States, employing nearly 4,000 people. In addition, Western companies benefit. American firms like IBM, AT&T, old friend GE, and Honeywell, to name just a few, are all worried about a Toshiba ban because all depend on Toshiba technology in their own products. And when we were at Toshiba, we saw a final example, America's most recent benefit of all. Seated at the table, 2 executives from Toshiba. And here comes a man who furnishes them with telephone computers that Toshiba sells in Japan.
Hi, Nakamoto-san.
Nice to meet you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Nice to see you again.
Ron Underwood and his 2 associates are from the Tokyo office of an American company. Toshiba buys fully assembled, specialized computers from Underwood's firm, which builds them in Denver, Colorado, and ships them to Japan, where Toshiba markets them.
We're very, very happy, Nandi. Would like this project or this line of business would expand more constantly, continuously. Very happy. Yes.
So there's more and more at stake for America in the destiny of companies like Toshiba. In Washington, D.C., some members of Congress have branded the company a traitor and think they've come up with an appropriate punishment.
To the board of directors and chairman of Toshiba, I have to say that there was a large supporting cast. That supporting cast is in the highest echelons of the Japanese government, and perhaps some of those people deserve this award and deserve the consequences that should properly go with it.
But for all the grandstanding, at least 2 questions remain to be answered. First, does the punishment fit the crime? After all, many companies, including American firms, have been found selling equipment to the Russians, and members of Congress aren't smashing their products. The second question, however, may be even more to the point. Do we have more to lose than win by making an example, maybe even a scapegoat, of Toshiba?
Here with 2 very different answers to those questions are 2 principals in the Toshiba debate. Senator Jake Garn, Republican of Utah, who is co-sponsoring a plan to halt Toshiba imports into the U.S. for a minimum of 2 years. And Jim Jones, former Democratic congressman and chairman of the House Budget Committee, who now works as a special counsel to Toshiba on trade issues. Senator Garn, why such a drastic punishment for Toshiba?
Toshiba is the tip of the iceberg. I've been in the Senate now for 13 years, and when I first got here, I was very, very disturbed by the flow of high technology to the Soviet Union from our own country, from Japan, from France, West Germany, England, other countries, deliberately diverted the Soviet Union. And this has caused us to spend tens and tens of billions of dollars of defense dollars defending against our own technology. We're paying a very high price for diversions of this type. I've tried to make changes for a decade in the Export Administration Act over and over again. I've been promised by 3 presidents, 5 secretaries of commerce that they would do something about this illegal flow. And they haven't. And then this one was a very important one because it allowed the Soviet Union to dramatically quiet down their submarines. So it wasn't just Toshiba, it's also Kongsberg, it's other companies. And my amendment goes
This is a Norwegian firm.
Yes, it goes far beyond just punishment of Toshiba and Kongsberg. It says that any companies in the future from any of these countries that do this will be prohibited from selling their products in the United States for 2 to 5 years. This is an issue of national security, vital to this nation and Japan as well.
Mr. Jones, he's saying it's a pretty egregious thing that Toshiba did, and the punishment fits what they did.
Well, I think first of all, there has to be a recognition that Toshiba Corporation, which is a parent of 666 subsidiaries, is different from Toshiba Machine Company. Toshiba Machine Company did indeed violate COCOM. They did indeed, with the Norwegians, get equipment.
This was an export control
right.
set of regulations.
Right, that did affect our national security. and the facts speak for themselves there. But the facts are also very clear that Toshiba Corporation neither knew nor should have known what Toshiba Machine Company did, because it was in essence an investment by Toshiba Corporation.
Senator Garn, do you accept that the parent company did not know what was going on by
Oh yes, I accept that, but they must take responsibility, just like when I was an aircraft commander. If one of my crew members did something wrong, it was my responsibility. The President of the United States is responsible for the actions of his government, so it is correct that they did not know. But it's interesting, until my amendment passed the Senate, the only punishment for Toshiba machine tools to say that they could not sell to the Soviet bloc for 1 year. That wasn't even a slap with a wet noodle across their hand. So the very fact the amendment passed the Senate has now caused Toshiba, the Japanese government, the Norwegian government to take a lot of actions that they otherwise would not have taken to correct this problem.
Mr. Jones?
Well, no, let me say there that I think Senator Garn does deserve real credit because his amendment has brought the attention to the need to have true sanctions and true enforcement of these export control laws on national security equipment. The fact is that Japan, the government of Japan, as well as all of the Toshiba companies, as well as other companies taking the lead from Toshiba, have done everything that our government has asked them to do, and in Toshiba's case even more, and they have a compliance program that is a model compliance program.
They dismissed the chairman of the company. And
oh yeah, all of those things were done, but what I'm talking about is looking to the future. They have done exactly what Senator Garn wants all countries to do, and there have been a lot of countries who violated these laws. But again, it goes back to the basic point. I don't disagree at all with Senator Garn and others who say we ought to punish the guilty both now and in the future, but not the innocent. And all I'm saying is that Toshiba Corporation truly was innocent of this particular misdeed of Toshiba machinery, and even more than that, the 4,000 to 5,000 employees, Americans, working in this country truly were innocent of that.
What about that, Senator Garn?
Again, correct. But it is so egregious, so difficult to even estimate what it's going to cost us to overcome what Toshiba Machine Tool did. The minimum estimate is $8 billion of defense expenditures in order to recoup the advantage we had in submarine technology and the quietness of submarines. I can't emphasize why I got so upset about this. It is a matter of national security. It isn't a matter of trade. I feel badly if U.S. citizens lose their jobs, but our security is at stake. And for countries that don't do their fair share of their own defense, they should not be participating in things that cause us to spend tens of billions of dollars of American taxpayers' money for our defense as well as theirs.
What about that point, Mr. Jones? I mean, that this was such an egregious thing. Again, you know, that with $8 billion to recoup what we lost?
First of all, I don't think anybody knows what Toshiba Machinery's contribution to this actually comes out to, because it is known, for example, that Soviet submarines were being silenced before any piece of Toshiba equipment went to the Soviet Union.
All right, maybe we should clarify that. What is it that the Soviets are now able to do as a result of what
Jim
Toshiba
is
gave them?
correct that they were starting to have more silent submarines, but the noisiest thing on a submarine is the propeller, the cavitations, the noise created by it turning in the water. These machines that were sold to them were very special machines that made much quieter propellers, a dramatic reduction in the noise created by Soviet submarines.
Well, and before the Toshiba milling machines that enabled them to manufacture these were shipped to the Soviet Union. There were milling machines by a French company that were there. That's not the point, though. Toshiba machinery did violate these export control laws. But part of our national security, and one of the things that makes the United States unique, is we have a basic sense of fairness and a basic sense of jurisprudence, of following the law. If you take the exact same fact pattern of Toshiba Corporation as a parent corporation with an investment and no operational control ever over Toshiba machinery, and you apply that same fact pattern to the United States, any company, under American law, there is no American law that would hold the parent liable for that. And all I'm saying...
Senator Garn, you want to respond to that?
Well, if we only punish Toshiba Machine Tool, and we don't have in the bill prospective punishments for any company, parent or subsidiary, that does this in the future, then we're not going to stop this kind of diversion. And that's why I'm being so tough on it. Because I am tired, after a decade of seeing this take place, I want it stopped. And believe me, if the amendment had not been this tough, Toshiba, Kongsberg, the Japanese government, the Norwegian parliament, they have made changes in their laws now. Right. It's had dramatic results, and that's why I continue to push it.
And Mr. Jones said it's had some results. Why not be satisfied with that?
Well, because we've already found out that in addition to this sale by Kongsberg, there have been other diversions by them through France and West Germany.
Is the Norwegian
France has not done anything yet. Okay. Italy and some other countries have not. And I want to see more changes. And at the very least, I want my amendment passed for the future that says you're put on notice. If you do this, the cost of you being disloyal to your own country and to the United States as you lose your sales in
other words, the message
States.
To these other companies, if you stand there, you run the risk of suffering.
You've got to hit them in their pocketbook. That's all they understand.
Right. The message will get across.
Well, I don't disagree with Senator Garn, and I think that the enforcement and the laws themselves have been lax in the past. And so the question is, we ought to have very strict sanctions, and everybody ought to know what the rules of the game are. And in Japan, they do know that, thanks to Senator Garn's amendment, and they're enforcing it, and they will enforce it. Other countries, the European countries, need to do it, but the point is...
And the United States
And the United States, right. But the point is, where the rules were not clear, and where you have an innocent party who truly had nothing to do with it, it's not fair to punish them.
He says it's not fair, Senator Garn.
He's right. Yeah. He's right. It isn't fair. But the problem is so serious when I look at the security of this country and having to spend $300 billion a year for defense, maybe it's time to be a little unfair after a decade of trying to get people's attention and correct the problem, that it's time I hit him with a 2x4 right between the eyes.
Is it time for a 2x4?
I think he's hit them with a 2x4, and I think the message...
You think they've already been hit, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at it. National security is a lot of things. National security is military expenditures. National security is our trade position. And here you have a company that we agree was innocent. The Toshiba Corporation itself was innocent of the wrongdoing.
But he's saying that doesn't matter. You've got to really go back in there and make the point.
I think what Senator Garn is saying is that in the future, that you have to have these very tough sanctions, and I totally agree with him. I think,
but not this sanction.
Well, no. In the past, what Senator Garn is known to be very, very fair. That is his reputation. When he and others made the statement that in the past we're only going to punish the innocent and not the guilty and not the innocent, I just have confidence that the American workers that are here who were innocent of this are not going to be punished.
All right. So you think what's your guess? What's going to happen, Senator Garn? Do you think you're
well, we're in conference with the House of Representatives, and as a matter of fact, there will be a meeting tomorrow morning to see if we can resolve the differences between the House and the Senate version. And I hope the result of that is we come up with a very tough provision that will send a message all over this world that you get punished if you deal with the Soviet Union with high technology.
Well, we'll be watching. Mr. Jones, we thank you. Senator Garn, thank you both for being with us. Our special Japan series will continue tomorrow as Paul Salmon looks at that country's economy through the eyes of a man who calls himself Japan's Ralph Nader.